Hello, this is Executive Coach Kim Miles, and welcome back to Balanced Life, Finally Feel the Ah. We are in Module 3, and we're talking about toleration removal. Let's dive in with the definition. Toleration, the capacity to endure continued subjection to something, the ability or willingness to tolerate something, in particular the existence of opinions or behavior that one does not necessarily agree with. When we're talking about tolerations, we're really talking about that underlying level of stress that just is weighing us down just enough such that when the real stressful situations come, we experience them much more quickly at a much higher degree. We are going to jump right into an activity regarding toleration removal. So I'd like for you to open up your Balanced Life Foundation program. Now, in this Balanced Life Foundation, we're looking at 4 areas of life: physical environment, health and emotional balance, money, and relationships. And I'd like you to complete this activity. Here's just an example of what the first page looks like. There are instructions, obviously, if you've opened it and printed it out, but this is the checklist that we are going to be going through. And in each area of life, there is a different set of statements, and what I'd like you to do is go through each list. And as you read the statement, you are going to check the box if that statement is completely true or if that statement will never be true. Let me explain why it is that way, why we're doing it this way. If it's completely true, for instance, my personal files, papers, and receipts are neatly filed away, then yes, that is completely true for me at this moment. I can check that box. And I actually have a system every week that I go through and neatly file away all my papers and receipts, etc. So that statement is true for me. And it will always be true for me, provided that I've got my system in place. Now, mind you, if you were to take this assessment at a different time, maybe you've fallen off the wagon with your systems, then maybe it's not checked. But the goal is that it will be checked at some point in time. So if that's the case, that it's not completely true now, but you want it to be true in the future, then leave the box unchecked. Let's take, for example, I recycle, number 16. Now, I personally don't mind recycling. It's not a huge priority on my list, but you know, if it were simple and easy, I would recycle. Here's the thing. In my family, it is not likely that the rest of my family is going to recycle unless I pull some strings and, create some magic and make it a priority for them. Because neither my husband nor my daughter have a real interest in it. So for me to recycle, it would take a tremendous amount of effort and energy, and quite frankly, I'm not that interested in it. Okay? So a couple things about this for the things that will never be true. I want you to consider if that's because you're being resistant to it, if it's because you really don't have a vested interest in it, and or if you would like to have a vested interest in it. So we'll take, for example, number 9. I surround myself with beautiful things. Maybe in this moment you're thinking, I don't care what my environment is like. I don't care if things are beautiful. But when you really stop and think about it, you think, you know what? Maybe it would be nice if I had a really nice office. Maybe I could see the value. I could see how it would be kind of cool to have a nice, home environment. If that's the case, then that's something that you could see the possibility of. It's something that you could see that you might want. And so therefore, go ahead and leave it blank because it's something that you might strive for in the future. So, as you work through this, I want you to, again, check the box if it's completely true right now. Or if you're never going to be interested in it, you don't see the value of it, that it just is not going to ever happen. I will tell you one other thing about this. This particular list is from the Coach U program and has been modified or adapted from that. So one thing to consider, keep in mind, is that this list really was based on the United States culture. So for instance, things like recycling is easily available to many people. You know, we are a culture that has that everyone drives, or most people drive. And so there are things, you know, on this list that is strictly due to our culture. And that being said, as you go through this, if you don't have a car, go ahead and check that off, knowing that once you do get a car, if you ever get a car, that you will want to keep it in excellent condition. The items, these statements are about the typical things that plague us and become tolerations. Unfiled paperwork, cars that are not in good working condition, plants or animals that are unhealthy or that haven't had their appointments, etc. These are those little things that we know need to be done, or that we think and feel need to be done in our society, and if they're not done, they just add that layer of stress and become a toleration in our lives. So I want you to hit the pause button. I want you to go ahead and complete this exercise. A couple things to keep in mind. Number one, when you complete this, it's not uncommon to have one or two areas that are drastically differently checked than others. So for instance, you might have 5 checked on one of these and 18 checked on the others. Or maybe you have 10 checked on one and 20 checked on the others. Now there's a total of 25 in each area. So there's a total of 100 statements for this whole program. In order for you to move up in terms of checked boxes from, for instance, a 75 to an 80, can take up to a full year. When we're talking about toleration removal, these tolerations are likely things that you've been tolerating for a while. So be kind to yourself and recognize you're not just going to remove all the tolerations in an instant. And also recognize that this first step of awareness is the biggest and is going to be the most powerful. So go ahead and hit the pause button, complete the exercise, and then meet back. All right, welcome back. Hopefully you've completed this exercise and you've come up with a total number of checked boxes for each one of the 4 different areas. So here are our next steps. Of the 4 areas of life, which one needs your attention now? When you look at it, which area of life did you check the least number of boxes? Just have some awareness around that. Think about it. I'd really like you to only choose one area that you're going to put some attention to. Second step is to identify one action that you can take today to check an additional box in that particular area of life. And it doesn't necessarily have to mean that you're going to take that action or that you're going to check that box today, but you're just taking one step in getting that. You know, an item that we had on our list, or that I had on my list for a very long time, was get a will. A step that I would take would be to reach out to an attorney or reach out to several attorneys to discuss. Obviously, that would just be a step. Then we would need to go ahead and continue to create the will, etc. The third step is to create a plan to check off a minimum of 2 additional boxes in that particular area of life. So let's just say you have an area of life that maybe you check 10 boxes on. Now you've identified that area as the one you're going to put your attention to now. You've identified one box that you're going to take a step toward getting it checked off. And now you're going to look at 2 other boxes that you can take action on and get checked off. When you think about this and think about that you're removing toleration, it's about shedding that extra weight that you didn't even know you were carrying. It's kind of like when you put on your jacket and one of the pockets is just a little bit heavier than the other. It's a little uncomfortable. You may not do anything about it, but you notice it. And over time, you don't really notice it until you clean out your pockets, and then you realize, oh my gosh, I had this extra set of keys here in this pocket. I didn't know exactly what it was, but it certainly was weighing me down a little bit. The amazing thing is once you take that extra set of keys out of your pocket, even though it didn't feel like much weight, you notice when it's gone. So I'll give you just a quick example of this whole toleration removal and its effectiveness. I had a client who had a horribly messy office. It was just unbelievable how messy the office was. He had a hard time finding anything. He had piles of papers everywhere. I don't even want to call them piles. He had papers everywhere. And on some level, he knew where the papers were, but he couldn't find it. And he spent, I am sure, at least a half an hour every day just trying to find the things that he needed, including his keys. Anyway, so we went through this exercise, and he decided to go ahead and clean his office. And he reported back that not only was it nice to be able to find things, but he would walk into his office and he wouldn't feel the tension and the stress. And it was noticeable to him. He walked in his office and felt a sense of relief. He walked into his office and felt able to start the day and engage in activity instead of stressed out, layered with tension, and really not prepared to find the first piece of paper that would help him start the day. One more quick example of this toleration removal is I had a light in my closet, my master bedroom closet. The light was out, and it was because the light fixture wasn't working properly. So every morning I'd get up, I'd turn on the light in the bathroom, and it would shine into the closet, which was fine. I could see my clothes. I would get my clothes out, pull them out into the bathroom just to make sure that I wasn't mixing a navy blue with a black or something like that. Go on about my day. So I was doing this toleration exercise, and what ended up happening is I decided to do the closet light as one of my tasks. I fixed the closet light. It was a very simple fix. There was just some loose wiring in the fixture itself. It took me about 5 minutes, literally, to fix it. And I fixed it on an afternoon, and the next morning I got up as I normally did, walked into the bathroom, flipped on the light switch, walked into the closet, and I flipped on the switch. And the light came on. It was the most joyous day I had experienced in a long time. I know it sounds really silly, but it was functioning perfectly. I could see my clothes. I didn't have to go back into the bathroom to see the color. The amazing thing that I didn't notice was that this is how I started every day. Every day I started with walking into that closet, not being able to see. I was in the dark, starting every single morning. Once I fixed that light switch, or that light fixture, every morning I'd walk in and have clarity. And while on one hand that's a metaphor, that's really real life. Not being able to see my clothes in the morning was such a minuscule toleration. However, it's how I was starting every day. So I want you to consider this Balanced Life Foundation next steps. And then I'd like you to take some time to reflect and consider, how are these tolerations impacting you? How are they impacting your family, your work, and your life? I look forward to connecting with you. Please do reach out to me if you find any kind of insight or awareness. Maybe you just have something exciting to share, like, hey, Kim, I fixed my closet light and I feel amazing. I would love to hear that. So that's the end of Module 3. I look forward to seeing you back in Module 4. And until then, many blessings and much gratitude.